welcome. My name is Angelina and today I'm going to be doing a very special K-pop 2020 review. I wanted to take a deeper dive into these comebacks and rank them on specific categories. So I'll still be ranking the songs as usual, but I will also be rating the styling and the performances as well. I thought this way we could literally talk about the best and the worst aspects of K-pop in 2020. From amazing songs to really terrible denim, I feel like I have it all covered. So if you're interested in this type of video, please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share this video with friends you don't have. And actually, it's really imperative that you click that bell to be notified so you can watch my videos before they get blocked by big companies worldwide. Just an observation. Now, please keep in mind, these are just my opinions, and you're free to fight me in the comments about it. I have a very long list of things that keep me up at night, and your disdain for my taste in music and performance is definitely not one of them. So I'm going to briefly explain the ranking system because I did add a tier, but otherwise you can skip around to wherever you'd like since I did separate this video into super fancy segments. So our newest top tier for this special end of the year review is called In K-pop Heaven, K-pop in parentheses, because it's a reference to a song that only the coolest people know. This is for songs that stood the test of time and touched my heart beyond measure. Right below, we have our newly named tier called Big Booty Bop, previously called Song of the Year, and they are of course iconic, but only the most special songs are reserved for the In K-pop Heaven category. Next, we have Cup of Milk, songs that gave us a good time but might lack longevity, while second gen vibes are songs that we might have casually liked. YG's Dungeon is everyone's favorite tier. It's for songs that could have simmered a little bit longer, could have used a little bit more work, and then of course we have Not My Cup of Tea, which is pretty self-explanatory. So let us start strong with Psycho by Red Velvet. I know that this song came out in 2019, but it counts because it's Kevin's favorite song. As for the styling, we didn't really get the most stages out of this. However, from what we did get, I mostly did really love it. We had kind of these gothic vibes mixed with just such a classy look. It honestly could have been a super solid 10 out of 10, but then these random plaid outfits came along, and then these random purple outfits came, and I'm just... no. So in terms of styling, I'm going to give this era an 8 out of 10. On to performances. Now this is not a jab at Red Velvet themselves. I think they're amazing vocalists. This is more of a jab at SM Entertainment, but every single dance performance that I found of this song was indeed LAR. You could hear the same breath sounds at the exact same time. Overall, it was the same track being played every time. I also thought their energy didn't really match the vocals either. And I honestly wasn't the biggest fan of the choreography, though I do have to say there were a few killing points that I think make up for that fact. Notably, this leg move, I don't know what it is about it. It's just like, it's so minimalistic, and I think it really fits with the song very well. So in terms of performance, I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10. In terms of the song itself, it's pretty damn near perfection. Now, I'm not like the biggest Red Velvet fan, but I would say like even if you don't love Red Velvet, this song, like, dare I say, is like objectively beautiful. The instrumentals, the high notes, the melody. And the thing is, it wasn't really a song that I reached for, but whenever it played, it was just so stunning and so beautiful. And so I actually am going to put this in K-pop Heaven. I do think it's that great of a song. It even sounds heavenly, and I really did enjoy it. So yeah, for Red Velvet, it honestly truly is a shame that this era was cut dramatically short, that we didn't get the most out of this era, though obviously that was totally out of their control, and I'm sure a lot of us would have loved to experience it fully. Next up, we have TXT. Now, I feel like they had quite a few performances this year, but we're only going to count Can't You See Me and Blue Hour. Can't You See Me feels like it's building off of Runaway, in my opinion. So the styling for Can't You See Me seems similar. You know, we have these kind of school vibes, but they really elevated it in a way where I didn't hate it to its core. So not that the styling necessarily stood out to me, but I do feel like it was original enough. It was kind of like quirky and dark enough to be appreciated. So I'm going to give Can't You See Me's styling a 7 out of 10. You know, sometimes it was a little bit goth, kind of like Red Velvet Psycho, but then also bringing in that whimsy. But I cannot say the same for Blue Hour. Blue Hour was a whole ass mess. Like, I don't like denim, but you know, the crop top and light wash denim, it was okay. Like, it really was not the worst outfits they had for this era. So for Blue Hour, I'm going to have to give them a 3 out of 10. For such a fluffy song, it just deserved much better styling. I don't know. I do not understand. Moving on to performance. So I think we did have a similar level of live vocals for both songs. Though again, a little bit of a jab at Big Hit. Their need for auto-tune is a little bit much at times. Though I feel like TXT, we hear a little bit more movement. So they both get 7 out of 10, but for different reasons. I love the vibe of Blue Hour, but I didn't like the choreography as much as I did for Can't You See Me. So for Can't You See Me, like the choreography was a lot more interactive. I felt like they used each other a lot more to tell a story rather than Blue Hour. It was fun. Song-wise, Can't You See Me, I feel like it was very solid, but it wasn't something that I really reached for. So for me, Runaway was like my favorite song, one of my top K-pop songs. Like that says a lot. Like I have a whole list. And similarly, I felt like Can't You See Me kind of rode that wave of this whimsical type song like Runaway, but it added kind of a darker twist to it. So I can't say that I hated it. Like it was definitely reminiscent of Runaway in certain aspects, so I did appreciate that. But again, it wasn't something I really reached for, though I did enjoy it. So I would go ahead and put this in second gen vibes category. As for Blue Hour, we had a very rough start. It was a song that like I hated at first. I listened to like the first 30 seconds and I X'd out of that. I was like, fuck this, I don't like it. But then it ended up on my playlist and I couldn't stop listening to it. It's just so much fun. The whole, you're the one that I want. Like that's so iconic and it makes me feel so fluffy inside. I'm so surprised that I hated it at first. So for Blue Hour, because I did end up downloading it and listening to it every single day for a full week, multiple times a day, might I add, it's gonna go into Cup of Milk. Overall, the experience of these eras were quite enjoyable, and we did get to see like many different sides to TXT, like not just with these two songs but with their B-sides as well, and I really appreciated that. Moving on to Blackpink, who also had a lot going on this year, but we're only going to be talking about How You Like That and Lovesick Girls. Now, How You Like That styling honestly wasn't that bad. I felt like we had quite a few iconic looks. The hanbok look, even this denim stage was kind of iconic. So I think I would give How You Like That an 8 out of 10. However, Lovesick Girls was admittedly a whole ass mess style-wise. And I'm not opposed to like a good mess. I feel like they were going in the right direction for quite a few stages, but for a lot of stages, looking back, they weren't my favorite. So for Lovesick Girls, I think I'm gonna give them a 5 out of 10. Now, as for performances, again, this is more of a jab at YG. I feel like YG, similarly to SM, is really obsessed with like this perfected sound, but they do it in a very different way. So for Blackpink, it was either a mix of LAR performances at times and then LMR performances at times with very loud backup vocals. But there were some live stages, so I've taken that into account. However, choreography-wise, I feel like they were vastly different. I actually really loved How You Like That's choreography. I thought it was the perfect mix of like cool and quirky, right? The entire chorus was just like a joy to watch. So because of that, How You Like That gets an 8 out of 10. However, Lovesick Girls, admittedly, the choreography wasn't really my cup of tea. There were some elements I liked, like the opposing elements where they would kind of walk from different directions or just doing things in pairs of twos but in opposite ways. I did really like that aspect, but overall the choreography wasn't really my cup of tea, so I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. For How You Like That, it for sure goes into Big Booty Bop. However, I do have to say that Lovesick Girls went straight into K-pop heaven. I really loved How You Like That. I thought it was really iconic, super catchy, and I actually do think it quite overshadowed their actual title track, Lovesick Girls. But even at that, I loved Lovesick Girls. I feel like they offered very different sides of Blackpink. How You Like That was a little bit more effortless, a lot more fun, and Lovesick Girls was just like, it had more depth to it, and I appreciated that so much. From the vocals to the lyrics, it was just a song that really made me feel something, and I actually cried when I first heard We Were Born to Be Alone because I just connected with it so much, so that's why 10 out of 10. Overall, obviously, I really enjoyed Blackpink songs this year, and I really enjoyed that we got to see more of them, through their full-length album, and even just seeing different concepts from like Ice Cream to How You Like That to Lovesick Girls. I think they offered like a very meaningful variety to fans this year. Now let us talk about Ateez. It's so funny because in my 2020 prediction video, I predicted that Ateez would have like 26 comebacks and that Blackpink would have 0. I was just being funny in this thumbnail, but you know what I mean. And they ended up having the same amount of music videos, so you know. I read something, I don't know if this is true, but I read that, you know, Ateez kind of quote unquote waste really good songs on B-side tracks because they never really know when it's going to be their last album, and that just like, I was like, oh no, I didn't need to know that. So styling wise, I can't say that I was super fond of Answer styling. I wasn't bad. I reviewed it. I remember reviewing it and it wasn't that bad, but I can't say like it stands out in any particular way. Though it was much better than Inception. Inception gets a 2 out of 10. I'm not accepting any counter arguments. I just can't with these school inspired outfits. As for Answer, they did have these blue velvet outfits, so I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. And for Thanxx, I actually appreciated Thanxx out of all 3 the most. I just feel like they weren't afraid to experiment with random shit, and they had like a really consistent theme going. Like Inception was consistent, but like I fucking hated it. But Thanxx had this like colorful post-apocalyptic vibe. Even if it meant like sandals on stage, it's fine. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Ateez's performances this year, I felt, showed a lot of progression towards more live vocals. You know, for Answer, I did hear different members at times, but I felt like it was becoming more consistent as the year was going on. Answer, I'm gonna give an 8 out of 10, and then Thanxx and Inception, I'm gonna give a 9 out of 10. For Inception, I mean like the acting in that song, like Swan was really a star player with his fake crying. I'll never get over that. And then I feel like Hongjoong really stood out in Thanxx with like his like scream rapping. The only critique I have is that I wish we could consistently hear each member much better. I feel like there are still some members that I'm not hearing as much, and not that I feel like I'm entitled to their vocals, but I know they're capable of it because I've heard them before, and I just know it would create such an amazing experience if I could hear them all. So my song ratings for these are quite high. I have to admit, Answer was my song of the year. Like, I looked at my Spotify, even though my Spotify rewind whatever the hell was not accurate, it was still like one of my most played songs. Answer goes straight into K-pop heaven category. I just think it's like pretty much perfection. The instrumental, how majestic it sounds. It also marked my first comeback with Ateez. So, you know, the nostalgia. Well, I don't think that made any sense. It's fine. And though you might think Inception and Answer are kind of on the same wavelength, I don't think so. I think they're both somber in a sense, but in very different ways. So again, Answer, very majestic, but Thanxx is very second gen melodramatic. As for Thanxx and Inception, they are going into Big Booty Bop. I ended up liking them pretty equally, but for sure Answer took the cake this year. So overall, I was very happy with Ateez this year, and I'm really happy to hear even more and more live vocals from them. Moving on to Twice, who have More and More and I Can't Stop Me. So More and More, again, was a mess, and I'm not opposed to messy styling. I loved Zimzalabim. Cue everyone, I'm subscribing. But admittedly, when was the last time you saw that level of innovation? Probably second gen. I said it. The main Mnet stage, I feel like, was nice. I liked it. And there were a few other consequence stages, like these white outfits. They were nice. But as an era, as a whole, I'm gonna have to give this a 4 out of 10. Similarly for I Can't Stop Me, we didn't get the most stages, and what stages we did get, I feel like there's just too much plaid. Twice objectively do too much plaid. And though I did appreciate like the old-timey vibes from like the plaid, you know, the Chanel, all of that stuff, it fell a little bit short to me, but this might get me into some hot water, but I don't care. Those denim outfits were not the worst. I have to admit, like, they were kind of nice. Some of them looked really good. Jihyo entirely excluded. Nevertheless, for the entire era, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Moving on to performance, so Twice is quite consistent with LAR as well. But truthfully, you know, even at that, with the choreography for More and More, it wasn't my cup of tea. I just feel like after Fancy and Feel Special, More and More would have been the same level of iconic, if that makes sense, right? But then it wasn't, so then I was a little bit disappointed with that. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. As for I Can't Stop Me, that choreography is definitely one of my favorite choreographies of the year, hands down. It's just dramatic and crisp, and overall, like, just a beautiful choreography. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Now, I don't know why I feel like a More and More anti, and then yet every time it plays, I can't stop singing it. And I'm like, I love this song, but then it stops playing. I'm like, I didn't like that. I'm confused. Though I'm very confused, this song will have to go into YG's Dungeon. I feel like I appreciated the direction they were going. I appreciated that they went outside of the box for this, but it wasn't my favorite. However, I Can't Stop Me was a whole ass experience. It 100% goes into K-pop heaven tier. I cannot stop listening to this, and I've been obsessed with the English version as well. Just like any version that will come out, I feel like I'm just gonna like attach myself to it like a fucking parasite. I love this song so much. I don't even know how to explain it. It's not just a song. It also ties into like choreography and all of that jazz. Overall, though my love or perhaps disdain of More and More confuses me, I feel like I Can't Stop Me really came and saved 2020. Now let's talk about (i-dle), who had Oh My God and Dumdi Dumdi. As for the styling for both eras, I don't feel like they stand out in any significant way. Like, I have to admit, they definitely followed a theme and they fit those themes more or less super well. But all of the stages, like for each stage respectively, kind of ended up blending together, where I can't really think of one set of outfits that stand out amongst the crowd, or like I can't really think of like iconic outfits. So though it fits the theme super well, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Performance wise, I have to say I heard a lot more LMR stages than I did LAR stages. Particularly their showcase for Oh My God. Usually showcases are like 100% lip syncing. Then Mion went ahead and did this. We'll never forget that. So though I wasn't the biggest fan of their choreographies, I'm still gonna have to give their performances a 7 out of 10. In my opinion, I liked Oh My God better. I thought it was like very sultry, very (i-dle). Dumdi Dumdi for me was really not my cup of tea at first. However, recently I've been liking Dumdi Dumdi a lot more. So I'm actually going to put Oh My God into YG's Dungeon, and Dumdi Dumdi is going to move all the way up to 2nd gen vibes. So overall, I appreciated that (i-dle) gave us two different sides to themselves, a darker side and then, you know, more fun summer song to balance it out. Let us move on to Swan, who had Fiesta and Secret Story of the Swan. So Fiesta styling, not my cup of tea again. The era for me was not particularly my favorite, so the styling for Fiesta gets a 4 out of 10. And it gets a 4 because I definitely loved these pastel suits. I thought they were so stunning. For Secret Story of the Swan, it still wasn't my favorite, but I felt like they experimented a lot more and fit the theme a lot better. So I'm gonna give them a 5 out of 10 for Secret Story of the Swan. For performances, Swan is another group that's quite consistent with LAR, and Fiesta wasn't my favorite choreography. As for Secret Story of the Swan, I actually love that choreography a lot more. Again, we're just mixing kind of these hardcore elements with these softer elements, like this breaking knee move. I don't like condone that, like give them some knee pads or something. But I did like the choreography in general, so I'm gonna give them a 6 out of 10. So Fiesta right off the bat was definitely not my cup of tea. I don't know what it is about the song, it just didn't really stand out to me. However, Secret Story of the Swan was definitely a lot more magical, so I think it would fit well in the 2nd gen vibes tier. Panorama, we're gonna save it for next year because I said so. Overall, I love the beginning instrumentals. It felt very powerful, but then, you know, we're also mixing in like these cuter elements within the song as well. So overall, though I wasn't really the biggest fan of Fiesta, I definitely appreciated that Secret Story of the Swan was also a release this year. Now let's talk about Stray Kids. So I honestly had no interest in this group. Just none. And then they came in like a wrecking ball. So as for styling, I'm gonna have to actually like surprisingly give God's Menu a very solid 8 out of 10. I have never seen a chef concept being done before, and they didn't just wear like plain white aprons. They like made it interesting. They had like really interesting stages. So kudos to them. As for Backdoor, you know, I'm putting it like slightly above Inception. I feel like they had similar vibes, even though it wasn't really a school vibe, but just like in the sense that I'm not really feeling it. So I'm gonna give them a 3 out of 10. As for performances, like their level of backup tracks are so low. Like the level of rawness that I hear from Stray Kids is definitely something else. I'm gonna give them a collective 9 out of 10. So God's Menu as a song obviously goes into Big Booty Bop. I had originally put it in 2nd gen vibes, but it's really worked its way up. I love everything about it. I think it's absolute perfection. You know, that pre-chorus into the chorus is just so beautifully contradicting. And then the intensity of that chorus is just so iconic. As for Backdoor, wasn't really my cup of tea. I really wanted to like it because I do like their performances, but it just wasn't a fit. But overall, like, I'm so excited to see what Stray Kids comes out with next. I'm not a stan as of right now, but like, if I really fall in love with their next releases, I could really picture that. And on that JYP note, let's talk about Itzy. So Itzy had Wannabe and Not Shy. As for the styling, I definitely think Wannabe had some solid stages. I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. We had like the newspaper looks. We had a lot of really amazing styling options. Not Shy is going to get a 6 out of 10. And here's the thing, like, I talk a lot about messy outfits and I love messy outfits, but if you're gonna go messy, you have to go messy. Like, you have to like embody that theme. You can't half-ass it, and I feel like Not Shy really half-assed it. You know, we had this one main Mnet stage which was super iconic. I loved the level of mess. But then the rest of the stages, they were just like, let's do a school theme, let's do this random theme, and it just fell flat. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Performance-wise, Itzy were another group who did a lot of live vocals. Wannabe, I didn't hear them as much, but for Not Shy, I feel like they really stepped up their game. So I preferred Wannabe's choreography, but I didn't hear the vocals as much as I did in Not Shy. So collectively, I'm gonna give them an 8 out of 10. And the thing is, I appreciated both of those songs, and I really did think they were both quite iconic in their own ways. So I definitely think I'm gonna put Wannabe into Big Booty Bop, and Not Shy also goes into Big Booty Bop. Overall, I was like so impressed with Itzy this year. I'm so excited to see more of their live vocals because I feel like it's on like this upward trajectory. Now let us talk about BTS, who also had quite a few releases this year. So Black Swan, On, Dynamite, and Life Goes On. As for styling, so Black Swan doesn't really count. On was more minimalistic with kind of these futuristic elements. So I half appreciated that, so I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. As for Dynamite, it wasn't my favorite styling era. I'm gonna have to give it a 3 out of 10. I appreciated like the whole 70s theme, but I feel like it was more 70s inspired. I wish they would have gone more hardcore with the 70s theme, more like authentic rather than just 70s inspired. Also denim. As for performances, again, this is more of a jab at Big Hit because, you know, I showed this in my SBS video before it got blocked worldwide, but BTS do show movement within their voices, and then Big Hit goes ahead and edits that so it sounds completely smoothed out. So for the performances, they either do LAR or it's live, but it's so edited. So while keeping that in mind, I think Black Swan was a beautiful performance. I loved the choreography, but again, we're not hearing that movement probably due to editing. So I'd have to give the performance a 7 out of 10. As for On, again, similar situation of too much editing. And for Dynamite, though I think it was a super fun performance, the choreography for me wasn't necessarily something that stood out. So I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. In terms of song, Black Swan is going into second gen vibes. I think it's just beautiful. There's just like this feeling that the song evokes that's kind of hard to really pinpoint. You know, when RM says, "But what if the moment's right now?" Like, it evokes this sense of urgency. As for On, it definitely wasn't my cup of tea. And as for Dynamite, I feel like it was like super catchy, and I definitely loved the fun feelings. And it shall go into Cup of Milk. How fitting, because that was definitely the inspiration behind this name. And maybe that's because I overdid it with Dynamite. Like, I personally downloaded it and listened to it like multiple times a day, every single day. And then I also heard it on like commercials on the TV and all of that stuff. As for Life Goes On, I do think it's a sweet song. I didn't really like it at first, but I am going to still put it into second gen vibes. Overall, I'm very happy that BTS gave us quite varied releases this year. Moving on to Everglow, who came out with Dun Dun and La Di Da. In terms of styling, maybe I'm biased because of this blue velvet, but I think it deserves a 10 out of 10. I mean, Dun Dun's styling overall was pretty solid to begin with, but I think this blue velvet just sends it over the edge. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Similarly for La Di Da, I definitely loved the styling. I loved the leather that they used, the different materials that they used. Like, was it probably uncomfortable as hell to perform in that? Probably. Did it look good though? I mean, yeah. So I would give them a 9 out of 10 for La-di-da. So for Everglow, I do think their performances are also quite consistently LAR. And particularly for La-di-da, I would have loved to hear some live vocals peek through because I feel like it's just that type of song. However, I'm gonna give Dun Dun a 7 out of 10 because I loved the choreography. I thought the kind of killing part at the chorus was just so minimalistic and so simple, yet very impactful at the same time. While for La-di-da, I did appreciate the various poses that they did, but the choreography wasn't my favorite, so I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. I honestly really liked both of these songs, and they honestly both go into Big Booty Bop. Like, I don't really have anything bad to say about these songs. Dun Dun felt a little bit softer, while La-di-da felt a little bit more hardcore. Okay, so now we're going to talk about 17, who came out with Left and Right and Homerun. So for the styling, I was actually like really impressed with both eras' styling because they have 13 members to style and to style individually. So they're not all wearing the same thing. They all have to maintain their individuality while still being somewhat cohesive, right? So for Left and Right, I feel like I'm a sucker for this type of styling. It was kind of more casual, more laid back, more baggy. That's something that I personally really love. And they had a lot of fun looks. Like, they really experimented with different things. So I'm gonna give them like a really reasonable 8 out of 10. Now, Homerun was completely different. Like, it's not comparable. But I have to admit, you know, they went for that retro theme. Like, they went for that 70s theme. They had like pants that were fitted in a certain way that just felt very authentic, very nostalgic. Like, rather than being 70s inspired, this was like full on 70s. They also played with a lot of textures, a lot of different materials that I like. Like, I heard through the grapevine, or rather I saw Velvet. I loved it. Like, overall, they were just really consistent with their stages and the Velvet. So I'm gonna give them like a really high 9 out of 10 for Homerun. So for performances, I can't say that I hear every single member. Sometimes I'm inclined to think that 17 only do LAR, but I'm starting to think they do LMR, but you just don't really hear everyone quite equally. But there were some instances of movement, there were some instances of live vocals peeking through, so I definitely appreciated that. And of course, their energy is incredible. They make very great use of their numbers, so I'm gonna give them a 7 out of 10. So right off the bat, I don't think I was the biggest fan of these songs. I think Left and Right was definitely a lot catchier, while Homerun, I feel like, fit more of a niche audience. Does that make sense? I don't know. I feel like 17 have a very distinct sound already, and then Homerun felt a little bit more towards that niche sound, if that makes sense. While Left and Right kind of went the opposite direction, if that makes sense. Regardless, they weren't quite songs that I reached for, so I would put them in not my cup of tea category. Now I'm going to add in Sunmi and her song Pporappippam, and we're also going to add in When We Disco because they plagiarized Kevin. We're only going to talk about the styling for Pporappippam, but literally there was no bad outfits during that era. She gets a 10 out of 10. What can I say? Even down to her makeup, it was just absolute perfection. Performance-wise, they do get different ratings. So Pporappippam, I'm going to say, gets a 7 out of 10 because I feel like that backup track was just so loud to the point where I really couldn't hear any movement. I couldn't really hear her, but I did appreciate how interactive the choreography was and how interested it kept me despite the fact that she was a solo artist, right? However, for When We Disco, 10 out of 10. Those live vocals, I swear to God, I haven't heard live vocals like that in so long. Like, you could hear the actual struggle, like that second gen struggle, and I was in love, so it gets a 10 out of 10. So for Pporappippam as a song, I think it has such a cute name because it's like a play on words for like purple lit night, and the way it was like spelt out was really cute. I'd honestly put it in Big Booty Bop. I thought it was like really dreamy. I just like it evoked a very specific feeling. And similarly, I really appreciated When We Disco. I'd also put this one in Big Booty Bop. It came out during a time where the retro theme wasn't super common, so it felt very original, it felt very nostalgic. I felt just like beautiful. It also evoked very specific feelings. I feel like they were on quite different wavelengths while being the same color of song. I felt like both of those songs are very purple themed. Maybe that makes sense to some of you, maybe it doesn't. So now we're going to do a lightning round. So just really quickly, Zombie by Day 6 goes into In K-Pop Heaven. Definitely love that song. Two Kids by Taemin goes into Cup of Milk. Why Not by Luna goes into YG's Dungeon, but Star by Luna goes into Big Booty Bop. More by KDA also goes into Big Booty Bop, as does Say My Name by Homerun, Jesse's Nununana, and then 90s Love by NCT. I actually did like it. I'm gonna put it in second gen vibes. And then of course, Hua by CL in K-pop heaven. So yeah, that is basically it for this video. Thank you so much if you made it this far. If you did, my watch time thanks you. This is the first video of the last year. What? I'm not even gonna try to make sense of that. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video with friends you don't have. You could also consider joining my channel members to help support this channel in a different way, to get a cute Kevin emoji next to your name, to see videos earlier, to get exclusive member-only videos. These are the lovely individuals who help support my channel on a monthly basis. Thank you so much. It means the world to me. As for me, I'm gonna get going. I've been filming for 1 hour and 8 minutes. Probably gonna edit that down to 20 minutes. We'll see. Bye.